Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Wrong Box. Marcus Bryant was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. As a senior security consultant for tech companies, he got plenty of spam calls, but something about the timing made him answer. Mr. Bryant? This is Principal Don Guthrie from Oakwood Elementary. We need you to come to the school immediately. The formal tone sent ice through his veins. Is Tommy okay? What happened? Your son is fine, but there's been an incident. Please come to the main entrance. Don't use any other doors. The line went dead. Marcus grabbed his keys, mind racing. Allison had packed lunches that morning, his protein bars and coffee for another late night, Tommy's usual sandwich and juice box, and her own mysterious combination that she never seemed to eat at work. His wife had been distant lately, distracted. He'd attributed it to her new job at the city planning office. 15 minutes later, Marcus pulled into Oakwood Elementary's parking lot and froze. 3 police cruisers lined the street, their red and blue lights painting the brick building in urgent colors. Yellow tape cordoned off sections of the playground. Parents clustered behind barriers, some crying, others talking rapidly into phones. Sir, you need to stay back. A young officer approached him. I'm Marcus Bryant. The principal called me. The officer's expression shifted. Wait here. Marcus watched children being escorted from side exits to waiting buses. Whatever happened was serious enough to evacuate the entire school. His chest tightened. Tommy was only 8, too young for whatever chaos had erupted in his small world. Mr. Bryant? Marcus turned to see a man in his 50s approaching, badge clipped to his belt. Detective Charles Robinson had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much, but his eyes held an odd intensity that made Marcus immediately wary. I'm Detective Robinson. We need to talk. Where's my son? He's safe. Being interviewed by a child psychologist. This is about what he brought to school today. Robinson gestured toward the building. Would you mind taking a look at something? They walked past the barriers, through the main hallway where Marcus had attended parent-teacher conferences and school plays. The normalcy felt surreal against the backdrop of armed officers and crime scene tape. In here, Robinson opened a classroom door. Inside, Tommy sat at a small table with a kind-looking woman Marcus didn't recognize. His son's eyes were red-rimmed, but he managed a weak smile when he saw his father. Dad, I didn't mean to take Mom's lunch. Mine had the blue bag, but I grabbed the wrong one and... It's okay, buddy. Marcus ruffled Tommy's hair, then noticed the lunchbox on the teacher's desk. Allison's plain black container, now wearing evidence tags like jewelry. Mr. Bryant, Robinson said quietly, we need you to look at this. The detective snapped on latex gloves and opened the container. Inside, where Marcus expected to see Allison's usual salad, lay a clear plastic bag containing white powder, a small digital scale, and underneath it all, a stack of photographs. Marcus's blood turned to slush. The photos showed men in expensive suits exchanging envelopes, timestamps indicating they were taken recently. He recognized some faces, city council members, the police chief, even Judge Catherine Stokes from the county courthouse. Sir, we need you to explain why your wife is carrying narcotics and what appear to be surveillance photos of prominent city officials. Marcus stared at the evidence, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. Allison worked in city planning, filed permits, attended boring municipal meetings. She couldn't be involved in whatever this was. I don't understand. This isn't. Allison wouldn't. Where's your wife now, Mr. Bryant? The question hung in the air like a blade. Marcus realized he didn't actually know. She'd left for work that morning, kissed him goodbye like she had for the past 12 years of marriage. But lately, those kisses had felt different. Distracted. Guilty. She's at work. The planning office. Even as he said it, Marcus knew something was very wrong. Robinson exchanged a look with another officer. We'll need to verify that. In the meantime, we have some questions. As they led him toward another room, Marcus caught sight of Tommy's teacher, Beth Hendricks, watching from the hallway. She'd taught his son since September, and he'd always liked her straightforward approach. But now she looked troubled, almost fearful. Mrs. Hendricks discovered the contents when your son couldn't open the container during lunch, Robinson explained. She immediately called security. Something in the detective's tone bothered Marcus. Too smooth, too prepared. Like a story rehearsed. I want to call my wife, Marcus said. Of course, right after we talk. But as they entered the principal's office, Marcus caught Mrs. Hendricks' eye again. She mouthed two words that made his skin crawl. Don't trust. Then Robinson shut the door, and Marcus realized his family had walked into something far more dangerous than a simple misunderstanding. Chapter 2. Beneath the Surface. 2 hours later, Marcus sat in an interrogation room at the police station, his phone confiscated and his patience evaporating. Detective Robinson had asked the same questions 17 different ways, clearly fishing for something specific. Let's go over your wife's recent behavior again, Robinson said, consulting his notes. Any unusual activities? New friends? Changes in routine? Marcus leaned back in the metal chair. His background in corporate security had taught him to read people, and everything about this situation felt orchestrated. The questions were too pointed, the evidence too convenient. I want a lawyer. That's certainly your right. But cooperating now could help your wife. We have reason to believe she might be in danger. What kind of danger? Robinson slid a photograph across the table. It showed Allison entering a downtown office building Marcus didn't recognize, timestamp from 3 days ago. She was looking over her shoulder, clearly nervous. Your wife has been meeting with some interesting people, Mr. Bryant. People connected to a federal investigation into municipal corruption. The kind of investigation that makes certain individuals very nervous. Marcus studied the photo. Allison wore her blue jacket, the one she claimed was at the dry cleaner when he'd asked about it last week. Another lie in a growing collection. What federal investigation? I'm not at liberty to discuss details, but I can tell you that what we found in that lunchbox suggests your wife is either a key witness or target. Maybe both. The door opened and a different officer entered, younger, with kind eyes and a more relaxed demeanor. Detective Robinson, you're needed in the hall. Robinson frowned but stood. Officer Green will keep you company. When they were alone, Officer Terry Green moved closer and lowered his voice. Mr. Bryant, I need you to listen carefully. Mrs. Hendricks asked me to give you a message. She says your wife came to the school last Friday, very upset. She told Mrs. Hendricks that if anything happened to her, to look in the lunchbox. Marcus felt the world tilt. What? There's more. Mrs. Hendricks thinks someone planted that drug evidence. She says your wife never carried anything suspicious in those photos. Mrs. Hendricks recognized one of the men. School board member Reginald Pennington. He's been pushing hard for a new construction contract. Wants to tear down the old wing and rebuild. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Marcus had spent 15 years in military intelligence before transitioning to corporate security. He knew his setup when he saw one. Where's my wife now? That's what we need to figure out. Her office says she never came in today. And Mr. Bryant? Detective Robinson isn't exactly known for his integrity around here. Before Marcus could respond, Robinson returned, his expression darker. Green, you're dismissed. Actually, Marcus said, standing, I think I'll take that lawyer now. I want to file a missing person report for my wife. Robison's jaw tightened. That won't be necessary. We've located Mrs. Bryant. She's being processed on related charges. What charges? Possession with intent to distribute. Conspiracy. She was arrested an hour ago at a storage unit registered in her name. We found more drugs, more photographs, and something else interesting, $50,000 in cash. Marcus felt the trap closing around them. This was too clean, too perfect. Someone had spent considerable time setting up his wife, but why? I want to see her. That can be arranged. Tomorrow, after you've had time to consider your own position in this matter. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Marcus nodded slowly, his mind already working through possibilities. Whoever was behind this had made one critical error. They'd underestimated him. Can I at least call my son? He's staying with my mother, and he'll be worried. Robinson hesitated, then slid Marcus's phone across the table. 5 minutes. Supervised call. Marcus dialed his mother's number, but when she answered, he used a phrase from Tommy's favorite video game. One that would sound innocent to anyone listening, but would tell her to take Tommy somewhere safe and wait for contact. Mom, tell Tommy that Marcus says the eagle flies at midnight. His mother, a retired Air Force colonel, didn't miss a beat. I'll tell him. Take care of yourself, son. As Marcus hung up, he caught Robinson watching him with new interest. The detective was smarter than Marcus had hoped. Interesting family phrase, Robinson commented. Tommy loves spy movies. But Marcus was already planning. If Allison had been gathering evidence on municipal corruption, she'd been careful about it. And if someone was desperate enough to frame them both, the corruption went deeper than city permits and construction contracts. As they released him with orders not to leave town, Marcus walked into the evening air and immediately noticed the black sedan following him home. Amateur hour. They wanted him to know he was being watched. Good. That meant they were worried. Marcus Bryant had spent years protecting corporate executives from threats, both foreign and domestic. Now it was time to protect his family, and he was going to make whoever targeted them regret every decision that led to this moment. Chapter 3. The Real Game. Marcus drove home through familiar streets that now felt like enemy territory. The black sedan maintained a careful distance, its occupants apparently confident he posed no threat. That assumption would cost them. His house looked normal from the outside. Neat lawn, basketball hoop in the driveway, Tommy's bike lying on its side where he'd abandoned it yesterday morning. A lifetime ago. Inside, everything was wrong. Drawers pulled open, paper scattered, couch cushions askew. They'd been thorough, but not careful. The kind of search designed to intimidate rather than investigate. Marcus went straight to his home office and opened a wall safe hidden behind his military commendations. His service pistol, emergency cash, and encrypted hard drive were undisturbed. Either they'd missed it or hadn't wanted to risk triggering additional security measures. He booted up his laptop and accessed the private network he'd maintained since leaving military service. Old habits from intelligence work died hard, and tonight he was grateful for his paranoia. Within minutes, he had preliminary reports on Detective Charles Robinson. 2 civilian complaints in the past year, both dismissed. A gambling problem that led to financial counseling. And most interesting, a recent deposit of $25,000 into his personal account, officially listed as a consultant fee from Pennington Construction. The same Pennington that Mrs. Hendricks had recognized in Allison's photographs. Marcus's secure phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 247, Riverside Self-Storage. Come alone. Hey, Allison was alive and trying to make contact, but it could just as easily be a trap. He spent the next hour planning. If this was legitimate, Allison needed help. If it was a trap, he needed to survive it and find out who was pulling the strings. Either way, he wasn't walking in unprepared. Marcus loaded his Glock, pocketed spare magazines, and activated the emergency protocols he'd hoped never to use. A series of encrypted emails went out to former military contacts, complete with evidence packages and instructions to release everything if he didn't check in within 12 hours. The black sedan followed him to the storage facility, hanging back as he parked. Marcus pretended not to notice as he walked toward the units, but his peripheral vision caught 2 men taking positions near the entrance. Unit 247 was at the back of the complex, away from the main road and security cameras. Perfect for an ambush. Marcus approached carefully, using other units as cover. The roll-up door was cracked open 6 inches. Marcus could see light inside, but no movement. Allison. Marcus, thank God. Her voice came from deep within the unit. Hurry, I don't know how long we have. Marcus hesitated. Something in her tone was off, too urgent, maybe coached. What's the name of the restaurant where we had our first date? Silence. Then, Marcus, there's no time for games. They're coming. Wrong answer. Their first date had been at Tony's Pizza, and Allison would never forget because she'd gotten food poisoning and he'd spent the night holding her hair back while she was sick. She told that story at every anniversary. Marcus stepped back and drew his weapon just as the unit door slammed upward. 3 men charged out, but Marcus was already moving, using his training to create distance and chaos. The first man went down with 2 round center mass. The second took cover behind a nearby unit. But Marcus had anticipated the move and put a bullet through his shoulder before he could raise his rifle. The third man, Detective Robinson, had Allison in front of him as a human shield. "Drop your weapon, Bryant, or your wife dies." Allison looked terrible. Bruised face, torn clothing, terror in her eyes. But alive. Really alive this time. "Let her go and we'll talk. You're not in a position to negotiate." Robinson pressed his gun to Allison's temple. "Your wife has been very helpful. Told us all about your little insurance policies, your military contacts. But those emails you sent tonight, they're not going anywhere. We've been monitoring your communications for weeks." Marcus kept his weapon trained on Robison's exposed shoulder. A difficult shot with Allison so close, but doable. "What do you want?" "Your wife stumbled onto something she shouldn't have seen. Construction contracts, permit approvals, cash changing hands. She took pictures, recorded conversations. Very inconvenient. So you decided to frame her?" The drug angle was Pennington's idea. Make her look unreliable, discredit any evidence she might have gathered. "But you both know too much now." Marcus saw Allison's eyes flick towards something behind him and immediately threw himself sideways. The fourth man's shot splintered wood where Marcus's head had been a split second earlier. Rolling to cover, Marcus put 3 rounds into the new threat while Allison broke free from Robison's grip. The detective fired wildly, bullets sparking off metal storage units. When the shooting stopped, Robinson was on the ground, clutching his leg, and Allison was pressed against a concrete wall, shaking but unharmed. "It's over," Marcus called out, sweeping the area for additional threats. "Your men are down, and backup is already on the way." "You think this ends with me?" Robinson snarled through gritted teeth. "Pennington has half the city council in his pocket. The police chief, judges, the mayor. You can't fight them all." Marcus zip-tied Robison's wrists and helped Allison to her feet. She fell into his arms, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he felt like they might survive it. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I saw them taking bribes, covering up safety violations that could have killed children. I thought I could gather enough evidence to expose them before anyone got hurt. We'll figure it out. But first we need to get somewhere safe." As sirens approached, real ones this time, called by his military contacts, Marcus realized their enemies had made a critical miscalculation. They thought they were dealing with a suburban family, easy to intimidate and eliminate. Instead, they declared war on a man who'd spent his career preparing for exactly this kind of fight. And Marcus Bryant was just getting started. Chapter 4. The Network Exposed. Safe house rules. No phones, no internet, no contact with the outside world until they understood the full scope of the conspiracy. Marcus had learned these lessons in Baghdad, but he'd never expected to apply them in suburban America. The cabin belonged to Terry Green's family, tucked away in the mountains 2 hours from the city. Officer Green had revealed himself as an undercover federal agent when Marcus's military contacts verified his identity through encrypted channels. "Your wife wasn't the first to notice irregularities," Green explained as Allison applied ice to her bruised face. "We've been investigating Pennington construction for 8 months, following a trail that leads from federal infrastructure funds straight into private pockets." Marcus studied the files Green had brought. Pennington wasn't just a corrupt contractor. He was the center of a web that included city officials, state legislators, and federal bureaucrats. The construction company was a front for money laundering on a massive scale. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? $47 million in fraudulent contracts over the past 3 years. They've been building substandard schools, bridges, and municipal buildings while charging premium prices. Your wife's photos could prove systemic fraud that goes all the way to Washington. Allison looked up from her ice pack. That's why they wanted to discredit me. The photos I took at the school board meeting showed Pennington handing envelopes to council members. I thought it was just local corruption, but the amounts were too large. What made you suspicious in the first place? Marcus asked. Tommy's school. They approved a demolition project for the East Wing without proper safety assessments. I reviewed the permits, structural integrity reports were forged, inspection signatures were fake. If that building collapsed during school hours, she didn't need to finish. Marcus felt cold rage building in his chest. These people had been willing to endanger children to protect their profit margins. So, I started following the paper trail. Allison continued. Shell companies, dummy corporations, all leading back to Pennington. But I needed proof of direct payments to officials. That's when I started taking surveillance photos. Green spread out a map of the city, marking locations with red pins. We know they have people in the police department, city hall, and the courthouse. What we don't know is how deep it goes or who else might be compromised. Marcus studied the pattern. They're not just stealing money. They're building a power base. Political influence, law enforcement protection, judicial immunity. This isn't ordinary corruption. It's systematic control, which is why they can't let you and Allison live, Green said bluntly. You've seen too much, and they can't risk you testifying. Allison reached for Marcus's hand. I should have told you what I was doing. I thought I could handle it alone, but when I realized how big it was, you were protecting our family. I understand. Marcus squeezed her hand, then turned to Green. What's your operational timeline? We need more evidence before we can move. Witness testimony is good, but we need financial records, communications, something that directly ties the federal funds to the conspirators. Where would those records be? Pennington's private office, most likely. Or his home. We know he keeps detailed records, criminal arrogance. But we can't get a warrant without tipping off potential allies in the system. Marcus felt a familiar tactical clarity settling over him. This was enemy territory, but it was also an intelligence operation. And he'd run plenty of those. What if he didn't need a warrant? Green raised an eyebrow. I can't officially sanction breaking and entering. But if someone hypothetically obtained evidence of federal crimes and provided it to you through anonymous channels, hypothetically, such evidence might be admissible if it was obtained by a private citizen who felt their family was in immediate danger. Allison looked between them. You're talking about burglarizing Pennington's office. I'm talking about reconnaissance. Marcus corrected. Information gathering. Understanding our enemy's capabilities and intentions. He'd already made his decision, but he wanted Allison's input. They were in this together now. It's dangerous, she said carefully, but these people try to destroy our family. They put our son in the middle of their crimes. And if their construction fraud kills someone. Marcus nodded. Green, I need building schematics, security information, and personnel schedules for Pennington construction. Also background checks on all employees. I want to know who might be sympathetic to our cause. You're talking about a military-style operation. I'm talking about protecting my family. Everything else is just tactics. As Green began making secure phone calls, Marcus walked to the cabin's window and looked out at the mountain landscape. Somewhere down there, powerful people were planning to eliminate his family to protect their criminal empire. They'd made their choice when they involved Tommy, when they put drugs in Allison's lunchbox, when they decided his family was expendable. Now Marcus was going to show them what a bad decision looked like. Chapter 5, Behind Enemy Lines. Pennington Construction occupied a gleaming office complex on the city's east side, all chrome and glass designed to project success and legitimacy. Marcus observed the building from a coffee shop across the street, noting security cameras, guard rotations, and traffic patterns. 3 days of reconnaissance had revealed the company's operational rhythm. Reginald Pennington himself arrived each morning at 7:30, left for lunch at noon, and typically departed by 6 p.m. His office was on the 4th floor, corner suite with reinforced windows and a private elevator. Getting inside wouldn't be the problem. Getting out with useful intelligence while avoiding a kill team would be the challenge. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Green. Thermal imaging confirms building is clear. Maintenance access via parking garage. You have 2 hours before security shift change. The parking garage was automated. Card readers and cameras, but no human guards. Marcus had acquired legitimate contractor credentials through a contact who specialized in corporate infiltration. Sometimes his old military network proved invaluable. The maintenance elevator required a special key, obtained by studying the building's service contracts and identifying the most corruptible employee. $100 and a convincing story about his boss needing access had solved that problem. Fourth floor was executive territory, thick carpets, expensive artwork, and the kind of silence that came from soundproofing design to keep secrets contained. Pennington's office door was solid wood with an electronic lock. Marcus's lockpicks were efficient, but not silent. Every click seemed to echo in the hallway as he worked, but after 90 seconds, the mechanism yielded. Inside, Pennington's office looked like a monument to ego, diplomas, awards, photos with politicians and celebrities. But Marcus was interested in the filing cabinets behind the massive mahogany desk. The first cabinet contained standard business documents, contracts, invoices, personnel files. Nothing obviously incriminating, but Marcus photographed everything with a micro camera designed for covert operations. The second cabinet was locked with a different mechanism, more sophisticated, probably containing more sensitive material. Marcus's electronic bypass took longer, and he kept checking his watch. 45 minutes remaining. Inside the locked cabinet, Marcus found what Green needed: detailed financial records showing money flows between Pennington Construction and numerous shell companies. Bank account numbers, transaction dates, coded references to specific officials. But the real treasure was in the bottom drawer: a leather portfolio containing photographs, audio transcripts, and what appeared to be blackmail material on dozens of politicians and bureaucrats. Pennington hadn't just been paying bribes. He'd been documenting everything as insurance. Marcus photographed the contents systematically, but as he worked, he realized someone was walking down the hallway toward the office. Heavy footsteps, purposeful stride, key jingling. He had perhaps 30 seconds before discovery. Marcus pocketed the camera, replaced the files, and looked for options. The windows didn't open, and the office was 40 feet above ground level. The private bathroom offered temporary concealment, but no escape route. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Marcus heard the key sliding into the lock and made his choice. He stepped behind the office door just as it swung open. Reginald Pennington entered, talking on his phone about construction schedules and permit applications. He was a large man, probably 6'4", with the kind of presence that dominated rooms and intimidated opponents. "No, we can't delay the demolition anymore," Pennington was saying. "The federal audit is scheduled for next month. We need that building down and a new foundation poured before anyone can test the concrete." Marcus remained motionless behind the door, barely breathing. Pennington moved to his desk, still talking, apparently planning to work late. "What do you mean there's been complications? I told you to handle the Bryant situation permanently." Marcus's blood chilled. They were still planning to eliminate his family. Detective Robinson failed because he underestimated his target. But Bryant is just one man, and accidents happen to people who threaten our operation. Pennington ended the call and sat heavily in his chair. Marcus had perhaps 5 minutes before the man noticed something amiss: disturbed papers or the faint scent of aftershave that didn't belong. Moving with absolute silence, Marcus edged toward the door. But as he reached for the handle, Pennington's phone rang again. "What now?" Pennington answered irritably. "You found them where?" Marcus froze. The conversation might reveal intelligence about threats to his family. The safe house was compromised? How is that possible? Pennington's voice rose with anger. "I want them found and eliminated tonight. No more games, no more attempts at subtlety. Just end this." The call ended, and Pennington immediately dialed another number. "Omar, it's me. The federal agent protecting the Bryants, Terry Green. I need you to take care of him. Permanently." Marcus had heard enough. His family was in immediate danger, and every second he remained hidden was a second closer to disaster. But Pennington was between him and the door, and the man was armed. Marcus could see the shoulder holster beneath his suit jacket. Making his decision, Marcus stepped from behind the door and pressed his pistol to the back of Pennington's neck. "Hands on the desk. Don't move." Pennington tensed, but complied. "You must be Marcus Bryant. I've heard a great deal about you. Call off your people. Now, I'm afraid that's not possible. You've become too much of a liability." Marcus increased pressure with the gun barrel. "Wrong answer. Try again. You think killing me solves your problem? I'm one man in a network that spans 3 states. You can't fight them all. Maybe not, but I can start with you. Pennington chuckled, the sound cold and confident. You won't shoot me. You're not a killer, Bryant. You're a family man, a protector. You don't have the stomach for what needs to be done. Marcus considered the man's words. Pennington was right about one thing. Marcus didn't want to be a killer, but he'd been willing to become one the moment these people threatened his family. You're right, Marcus said finally. I'm not going to shoot you. Instead, he struck Pennington behind the ear with the gun's grip, and the man slumped unconscious across his desk. Marcus zip-tied Pennington's wrists and ankles, then used the man's phone to send a text. Bryant's situation resolved. Stand down all teams. It might buy them a few hours, long enough to get his family to safety and turn the evidence over to Green's federal contacts. But as Marcus prepared to leave, he found one more item in Pennington's desk, a detailed floor plan of Tommy's school, with a demolition schedule and a note. Expedite removal of witnesses if necessary. They've been planning to blow up the school with his son inside. Marcus stared at the document, feeling something fundamental shift inside him. These people had moved beyond crime into pure evil, and they'd made his 8-year-old son a target. Pennington was wrong about one thing. Marcus did have the stomach for what needed to be done. He just hoped he could live with himself afterward. Chapter 6. The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. The safe house was compromised, exactly as Pennington had promised. Marcus arrived to find the cabin's windows shot out, furniture overturned, and blood on the kitchen floor. But no bodies, which meant Green had managed to evacuate Allison and Tommy before the attack. Marcus's secure phone contained a single text message. Package relocated to secondary location. Wolfpack still hunting. Secondary location was a code they'd established. If the cabin was blown, everyone would rendezvous at the abandoned ranger station 12 miles north. But Marcus had a growing suspicion that even their secure communications were being monitored. The mountain road to the ranger station wound through dense forest, perfect terrain for an ambush. Marcus drove carefully, checking mirrors, studying every shadow that might conceal a sniper. His military training was kicking in, hyper-awareness, tactical thinking, preparation for violence. The ranger station appeared empty, but Marcus approached on foot through the trees. His family was inside, along with Green and 2 people he didn't recognize, a woman in tactical gear and a man with the bearing of federal law enforcement. Marcus, thank God. Allison ran to him as he entered. Tommy hugged his legs, and for a moment the world felt normal again. Status report, he said to Green. They hit the cabin 40 minutes after you left for Pennington's office. Professional team, military-grade weapons. We had maybe 2 minutes warning for motion sensors. Anyone hurt? Agent Silva took a round through the shoulder, but she'll live. Green gestured to the woman in tactical gear, who was bandaging her own wound with practiced efficiency. The federal agent stepped forward. I'm Special Agent Leonard Ward, FBI. Agent Green has filled me in on the situation. What did you find at Pennington's office? Marcus transferred the photographs from his camera to Ward's laptop, watching the agent's expression grow darker with each image. This is enough to bring down half the state government, Ward muttered. Financial records, blackmail material, documented bribery. But it might also get you killed before we can use it. They're already trying to kill us. What's the difference? The difference is that now they're desperate. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. Tommy tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Dad, why are those bad men trying to hurt us? Marcus knelt to his son's eye level, struggling with how to explain adult corruption to an 8-year-old. Some people make bad choices, buddy. They care more about money than about doing the right thing. Like the bullies at school? Yeah, exactly like that. But we're going to make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Agent Ward closed the laptop and stood. Mr. Bryant, I need to ask you about Reginald Pennington. Our sources indicate he's been missing since last night. Missing how? He never came home from the office. His wife called police this morning. There are signs of a struggle in his office. Zip ties, evidence that someone had been through his files. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Interesting. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I might have paid his office a visit. For reconnaissance purposes. Ward exchanged a look with Green. And Pennington's current whereabouts? When I left him, he was resting comfortably in his office chair. What happened after that is anyone's guess. It was mostly true. Marcus had left Pennington alive, but unconscious. What the construction executive's associates had done when they found him was their business. Green's radio crackled with static, then a voice. All units, be advised. Armed subjects spotted near Ranger Station. Repeat, multiple armed subjects approaching target location. Through the windows, Marcus could see muzzle flashes in the tree line. The building shook as high-powered rounds punched through the wooden walls. Everyone down, Ward shouted, drawing his weapon. Silva, can you move? I can fight. Marcus pulled Tommy behind an overturned table while Allison pressed against the wall beside them. Buddy, remember the games we play at home? Hide and seek. Tommy nodded, eyes wide with fear. I need you to be the best hide-and-seek player ever, okay? Stay right here with Mom, and don't make any noise. Marcus crawled to the window and peered through a bullet hole. At least 8 attackers spread through the forest in professional formation. They had the ranger station surrounded and were closing the noose methodically. How many rounds do we have? Marcus asked. Ward checked his magazine. 60 rounds total. Silva. Same. Green tossed Marcus an extra pistol. 40 more here. Marcus counted muzzle flashes and estimated distance. We're outnumbered and outgunned. They'll overwhelm us in minutes unless we change the game. What do you suggest? Marcus thought about the terrain, the building's layout, the psychological profile of their attackers. These were hired killers, professionals who expected their targets to cower and surrender. They're expecting a siege. We give them a breakout. Marcus moved to the building's rear door, which faced the steepest section of forest. I go out the back, circle around, hit them from behind. Once they turn to engage me, you take Tommy and Allison out the front and get to the vehicles. That's suicide, Green said. Maybe, but it's the only play that gets my family out alive. Allison grabbed his arm. Marcus, no. We stay together. We stay alive. That's what matters. He kissed her forehead, then Tommy's. I'll catch up, I promise. Before anyone could argue further, Marcus slipped out the rear door and into the forest. He had perhaps 30 seconds before the attackers realized their formation had been compromised. The mountain terrain was his ally now. Marcus had trained for exactly this kind of asymmetric warfare, turning an enemy's numerical advantage into a tactical liability. If he could stay mobile, hit them from unexpected angles, create enough chaos. The first target never saw him coming. Marcus emerged from behind a tree trunk and put 2 rounds center mass before the man could raise his rifle. The second attacker turned at the sound of gunfire, but Marcus was already moving, using the forest for cover. Another 2 rounds, another threat eliminated. By the time the remaining attackers realized they were under attack from behind, Marcus had already repositioned and was engaging a third target. The professional formation was collapsing into individual confusion. Through the trees, he could see Green leading his family toward the vehicles. Almost there. But as Marcus lined up his next shot, he heard something that made his blood freeze. The distinctive whine of an incoming helicopter. The attackers weren't just a ground team. They had air support, and his family was running directly into another trap. Marcus keyed his radio. Green, abort. Chopper incoming from the north. But the radio was dead, jammed, or destroyed. His family was on their own, and Marcus was still 300 yards away through hostile forest. He'd never felt more helpless in his life. Chapter 7. The Counterattack. The helicopter was a sleek black model, military surplus, equipped with searchlights and what looked like mounted weapons. It swept low over the ranger station, rotors whipping the forest into chaos. Marcus watched helplessly as Green herded Allison and Tommy toward the tree line, only to be forced back by the aircraft's devastating firepower. Rounds chewed up earth where his family had been standing seconds before. But the helicopter's presence also revealed something crucial. Their attackers were willing to use extreme measures in public. This level of violence would draw massive law enforcement response, which meant they planned to end this tonight permanently. Marcus keyed his backup radio, hoping at least one frequency remained clear. Ward, do you copy? Barely. We're pinned down. That chopper's got us locked in the building. Can you reach your people? Federal response. Already called it in, but nearest support is 40 minutes out. We don't have 40 minutes. Marcus studied the tactical situation. The helicopter was maintaining a circular pattern around the ranger station, using its searchlight to deny his family any escape route. The remaining ground team was tightening their perimeter, preparing for a final assault. But the aircraft was also the enemy's critical vulnerability. Take it down, and the entire operation would collapse. Marcus had one advantage. His opponents didn't know his military background included advanced weapons training. They saw a suburban security consultant, not a former Army Ranger who'd spent 2 tours specializing in asymmetric warfare. Moving through the forest with practiced stealth, Marcus approached the position where he'd neutralized the first attacker. The man's rifle was a high-end AR-15 variant with a scope and grenade launcher attachment. More importantly, he carried fragmentation grenades on his tactical vest. Marcus had used similar weapons in Afghanistan, turning enemy equipment against hostile forces. The principle remained the same. Identify the most dangerous threat and eliminate it with maximum efficiency. The helicopter was completing another circuit, its searchlight sweeping methodically across the forest. Marcus calculated trajectory, wind speed, and timing. He would have one opportunity, maybe 2 seconds to acquire the target. As the aircraft approached his position, Marcus stepped into a small clearing and shouldered the grenade launcher. The helicopter's pilot saw him immediately, banking hard to bring mounted weapons to bear. But Marcus had already fired. The grenade struck the helicopter's main rotor assembly, and the aircraft disintegrated in a spectacular fireball that lit up the entire mountainside. Burning debris rained down through the forest as Marcus ran toward the ranger station. The explosion had shocked the remaining attackers into momentary paralysis, exactly the opening his family needed. "Move now," Marcus shouted into his radio. "Go, go, go." He saw Green burst from the building with Tommy in his arms, Allison and the federal agents close behind. They sprinted toward the vehicles as Marcus laid down, covering fire, forcing the scattered ground team to take cover rather than pursue. But as his family reached the trucks, Marcus heard engines approaching from the mountain road. More vehicles, more attackers. The helicopter had been just the first wave. "Ward," Marcus keyed the radio. "How much federal backup did you call for?" "Everything I could. FBI, ATF, state police. But they're still 30 minutes out." 3 SUVs rounded the bend, high-performance vehicles with reinforced glass and tactical modifications. Professional operators, well-equipped and determined to finish what they'd started. Marcus made a battlefield decision that would haunt him for years. Instead of trying to escape with his family, he would buy them time by engaging the new threats directly. "Green, take my family and run. Federal Highway 6, north toward the state line. Don't stop until you reach FBI headquarters." "Marcus, don't do this. Tell Tommy his dad loves him. Tell Allison I'll see her soon." Marcus switched to a different frequency, one he'd hoped never to use again. "Phoenix Base, this is Reaper 7. Requesting immediate tactical support. Coordinates following." The voice that answered was crisp and professional. "Reaper 7, Phoenix Base. We show you as inactive status. Reactivating under emergency protocols. I have a family in immediate danger from hostile forces. Permission to engage with extreme prejudice." A pause, then, "Reaper 7, you are authorized. Cavalry en route. ETA 20 minutes. Marcus felt something shift inside him. The transition from protective father back to the soldier he'd been trained to be. These people had threatened his child, tried to destroy his family, and shown no mercy. Now they would learn what that really meant. The first SUV was already disgorging armed men when Marcus opened fire from an elevated position. His first shots shattered the vehicle's windshield and sent the occupants diving for cover. The second vehicle tried to flank him through the forest. But Marcus had anticipated the move. A grenade placed with surgical precision disabled their engine and scattered the team. By the time the third SUV arrived, Marcus had repositioned again, using terrain and darkness to remain invisible while picking off targets systematically. This was the kind of combat he'd excelled at overseas. Lone operator against superior numbers, turning an enemy's aggression into their weakness. But even as he fought, Marcus kept one eye on the horizon. His family was escaping, putting distance between themselves and this nightmare. That was what mattered. Everything else was just tactics. Chapter 8. Endgame. Dawn broke over the mountain forest, revealing a scene of total devastation. Burning vehicles, scattered equipment, and the silence that follows overwhelming violence. Marcus sat on a fallen log, cleaning his rifle while federal agents processed the crime scene. The cavalry he'd called had arrived exactly on schedule. A tactical team from his old unit, operating under classified protocols that allowed them to engage domestic threats when federal agents requested assistance. Officially, they'd never been there. Special Agent Ward approached, looking exhausted. Final count is 15 hostile Kia, no federal casualties. Your family is secure at FBI headquarters in Denver. Marcus nodded, feeling empty. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the weight of what he'd done. Any survivors? 2. They're being processed separately, but neither is talking. Professional operators, probably foreign nationals. What about Pennington? Ward's expression darkened. Found him this morning in his office. Tortured, then executed. Someone wanted information from him before he died. Marcus felt a chill. What kind of information? Security details for his associates, locations of evidence, financial records. Someone was cleaning house, eliminating everyone who could implicate the broader conspiracy. The implications were staggering. Pennington hadn't been the top of the organization. He'd been middle management, and his death meant the real powers behind the corruption were still active. My family isn't safe, is it? Ward shook his head. The financial evidence you obtained is devastating, but it also makes you permanent targets. These people have millions of dollars and political influence. They can wait, plan, try again. Marcus stood, decision crystallizing in his mind. Then we don't give them the chance. What do you mean? You said the evidence could bring down half the state government. Let's bring them all down. Today. Ward stared at him. That's not how federal prosecutions work. We need time to build cases, verify evidence, secure additional witnesses. Time is what gets my family killed. These people just demonstrated they're willing to use military-grade weapons in domestic operations. They have federal agents on payroll, judges in their pocket, police commanders taking bribes. The system is too compromised for normal procedures. Marcus pulled out his secure phone and began scrolling through contacts. Men and women from his military background, people who transitioned to corporate security, federal law enforcement, and intelligence services. The kind of network that could coordinate actions across multiple jurisdictions simultaneously. What are you proposing? Coordinated takedown. Hit all the major players at once, before they can destroy evidence or flee. Use the financial records to identify bank accounts and freeze assets. Simultaneous arrests based on your federal warrants. Ward looked skeptical. That would require unprecedented interagency coordination. FBI, ATF, IRS, Treasury, State Police. I've coordinated larger operations with less preparation. The key is speed and overwhelming force. Don't give them time to respond or adapt. Marcus was already making calls, activating relationships built over 15 years in military and corporate security. Within an hour, he had commitments from federal agents in 3 states, IRS investigators, Treasury Department specialists, and state law enforcement commanders who'd been waiting for an opportunity to clean house. The beauty of corruption was its paper trail. Every bribe required documentation. Every laundered dollar left electronic fingerprints. The evidence Allison had gathered, combined with Pennington's blackmail files, painted a complete picture of the criminal network. By noon, Marcus was coordinating a law enforcement operation that spanned 6 cities and involved over 200 agents. Mayor's offices, construction companies, judicial chambers, police precincts, simultaneous raids designed to catch every conspirator before they could communicate with associates or destroy evidence. This is either brilliant or completely insane, Ward muttered as they watched the operation unfold from an FBI command center. Sometimes there's no difference. The first arrest began at 2:17 p.m. Judge Catherine Stokes, caught accepting an envelope of cash in her chambers. Police Chief Ron Collier, attempting to shred documents when agents breached his office. City Council members Omar Tate and Lyle Nicholson, arrested during what they thought was a routine budget meeting. By 4 p.m., the entire conspiracy was in custody or fleeing. Bank accounts frozen, assets seized, decades of corruption finally exposed to daylight. Marcus watched the news coverage, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. His family would be safe now. The people who'd threatened them were either in federal custody or facing life in prison. But as the adrenaline faded, he realized the true cost of what he'd done. 15 men lay dead on a mountainside because they'd chosen to threaten his family. A network of corruption that had operated for decades was destroyed because they'd made his son a target. Marcus Bryant had been a protector, a father, a man who believed in working within the system. Now, he was something else entirely, someone willing to use overwhelming force to defend what mattered most. His phone buzzed with a message from Allison. Coming home. Is it over? Marcus typed back, it's over. See you soon. But as he prepared to reunite with his family, Marcus understood that some changes were permanent. The man who'd packed Tommy's lunch that morning was gone forever, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous, and infinitely more protective. Some might call it tragedy. Marcus called it evolution. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 6 months later, Marcus sat in Tommy's school gymnasium, watching his son accept an award for academic achievement. The same building where this nightmare had begun now felt like a symbol of victory. Renovated with legitimate construction funds, made safe by honest contractors, protected by police officers who serve the community rather than criminal interests. The Pennington construction scandal had made national headlines. Congressional hearings, federal trials, and a complete overhaul of municipal contracting procedures. 47 people ultimately received prison sentences ranging from 10 years to life. Marcus's role in the takedown had been carefully sanitized from public records. Officially, he was a concerned citizen who'd provided information to federal investigators. The mountain battlefield had been classified as a terrorist incident, handled by specialized units whose activities remained classified. Dad, did you see? I got the math award. Tommy bounded over, clutching his certificate. I'm proud of you, buddy. Mom will be proud too. Allison was testifying before a Senate subcommittee this week, helping craft new oversight legislation for federal infrastructure spending. Her courage in exposing the corruption had made her a reluctant public figure, sought after by lawmakers and media outlets nationwide. Mrs. Beth Hendricks approached, smiling. Tommy's been our star student this semester. I think the experience last year really motivated him to focus on his studies. Marcus nodded. They told Tommy a carefully edited version of events. Bad men had tried to hurt their family, but the good guys had won in the end. It was true enough, though it omitted some darker details. Mr. Bryant, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Mrs. Hendricks gestured toward a woman in her 30s wearing a visitor's badge. This is Sarah Mitchell from the Department of Education. She's been working on the new school security protocols. Marcus shook the woman's hand, immediately noting her firm grip and the way her eyes scanned the room. Former military or law enforcement, possibly both. Mr. Bryant, I've been hoping to speak with you. My superiors are impressed by your consulting work on the Pennington investigation. We have similar situations in other districts, and we could use someone with your particular skills. Marcus felt a familiar stirring. The call to action, the opportunity to protect innocent people from those who would exploit them. But he also thought of his family, the price they'd already paid, the risks that came with this kind of work. I appreciate the offer, but I'm focusing on my family right now. Of course, but if you change your mind. She handed him a business card with a phone number and nothing else. Sometimes good people need someone willing to step outside normal procedures. After she left, Tommy tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Dad, who was that lady? Someone who helps make schools safe, buddy. Like you did. Marcus looked down at his son, 8 years old, innocent, trusting that his father could protect him from any danger. The weight of that trust was both humbling and terrifying. Yeah, like I did. That evening, Marcus found himself in his home office, staring at Sarah Mitchell's business card. His computer showed news reports about corruption scandals in 3 different states, children endangered by unsafe buildings, families threatened by criminal networks that operated with impunity. His secure phone contained 7 messages from federal agencies, 2 from corporate clients, and 1 from a former military contact working international security. The word was out. Marcus Bryant got results. Allison found him there when she returned from Washington, her testimony completed and legislation drafted. She looked tired but satisfied, like someone who'd accomplished something important. "How did it go?" Marcus asked. "Good. Real good. The new oversight requirements should prevent another Pennington situation." She noticed the business card on his desk. "What's that?" "Job offer. Department of Education want me to consult on similar cases in other states." Allison studied his expression carefully. "Do you want to take it?" Marcus considered the question. 6 months ago, he would have said no automatically. Too dangerous, too much risk to his family. But the world had changed, or maybe he'd changed. There were people out there who needed protection from forces they couldn't fight alone. Part of me does. These cases, children are at risk, families are being threatened. Someone has to stand up to these people. And you're good at it. Apparently. Allison sat on the edge of his desk. "What does your heart tell you?" Marcus looked through his office window toward Tommy's room, where his son was probably reading before bed. The boy who'd innocently grabbed the wrong lunchbox and triggered a chain of events that toppled a criminal empire. "My heart tells me that evil exists and good people need protection. But it also tells me that my first responsibility is to my family." What if those responsibilities don't have to be mutually exclusive? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Meaning maybe we do this together. You handle the tactical side, I handle the investigative and legal aspects. We build safeguards, work with legitimate agencies, only take cases where we can make a real difference. The idea was intriguing. Allison had proven herself capable of extraordinary courage, and her skills complemented his own. Together, they might be able to help families like theirs while minimizing risks to Tommy. It would be dangerous work. More dangerous than doing nothing while criminals hurt children? "Marcus, we have skills, resources, and experience that most people don't. Maybe we have an obligation to use them." Marcus picked up Sarah Mitchell's card and turned it over in his hands. 6 months ago, he'd been a suburban security consultant with a quiet life and predictable future. Now he was something else entirely, a man who discovered capabilities he'd never wanted to use. "If we do this," he said finally, "we do it right. Professional operations, legitimate oversight, ironclad security for Tommy." "Agreed. And we stop the moment it becomes too dangerous for our family." "Agreed." Marcus dialed the number on the card. Sarah Mitchell answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Marcus Bryant. I've reconsidered your offer. I'm glad to hear that. When can you start?" Marcus looked at his wife, who nodded encouragingly. "We can start whenever you need us. My wife and I work as a team now. Take it or leave it." A pause, then, "Mr. Bryant, I think that's exactly what we need." As Marcus hung up the phone, he felt something he hadn't experienced since before this nightmare began. A sense of purpose that went beyond survival. They'd been victims, then survivors, and now they were something more. They were protectors, guardians for families who couldn't protect themselves from predators who hid behind authority and respectability. The lunchbox that had started it all sat on a shelf in Tommy's room, now containing his Pokemon cards and various treasures. A reminder of how quickly ordinary life could become extraordinary, and how ordinary people could rise to meet extraordinary challenges. Marcus Bryant had learned that sometimes the system failed. Sometimes good people stood alone against overwhelming corruption. But he'd also learned that one person willing to fight could make all the difference in the world. And now there were 2 of them. The phone was already ringing with their first case. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Recognition. The gun barrel felt cold against Angelo Mills' temple as he knelt in the dim alley behind Mickey's bar. Rain had been threatening all evening, and now fat drops began to splatter against the brick walls, mixing with the stench of garbage and stale beer. The masked man behind him breathed heavily, his grip on the weapon surprisingly unsteady for someone in his profession. "Your wife says hello," the gunman said, his voice muffled by the black ski mask. Angelo remained perfectly still, his mind calculating distances and angles with the precision that had kept him alive through 12 years of black operations. The man was nervous. Amateur hour. As he was forced to his knees, Angelo's shirt sleeve rode up, revealing the distinctive tattoo that marked him as property of a place that officially didn't exist. The gunman froze. The weapon trembled against Angelo's skull. "You're the ghost of cell block 8?" he stammered, lowering his weapon as if it had suddenly become red hot. Angelo's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The ghost. It had been 7 years since anyone had called him that. 7 years since he'd walked away from the shadows and tried to build a normal life with Sophia and their daughter Jennifer. 7 years of pretending to be just another suburban husband working in private security. The hitman, now visibly shaking, pulled out his phone with trembling fingers. "Man, I didn't know. She didn't tell me." He showed Angelo the screen, a text message thread that made Angelo's blood run ice cold. "Sophia, make it look like a robbery. Clean job. Next target is his daughter. Sophia, she gets home from school at 3:30. Black Honda, license plate JMK 4457. Sophia, $50,000 bonus if you make it look like an accident." Angelo stared at the messages, each word carving deeper into his chest than any blade ever had. Sophia, his wife of 15 years. The woman who'd held him through nightmares about places that couldn't be found on any map. The mother of his child. "Listen, Ghost," the hitman said, backing away. "I didn't sign up for this. I mean, the wife thing, sure, but a kid? And you." He gestured helplessly. "Everyone knows the stories. Cell Block 8. The cleaner. The man who broke Kozlov without laying a finger on him." Angelo stood slowly, his movements fluid despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "What's your name?" "Daryl. Daryl Blackburn." "Look, I'll give the money back. All of it. Just, we never met, okay?" Angelo studied the younger man. Mid-30s, military bearing, probably special forces before going private. Good enough to take out civilians, not good enough to research his targets properly. "Set up a meeting with my wife," Angelo said quietly. "Tell her the job is done, but that there were complications. You need to meet in person to collect the remainder of your fee." Daryl nodded eagerly. Yeah, I can do that." "When?" "Tomorrow night. Pier 47, Warehouse District, 11 p.m. Angelo's voice carried the weight of authority that had once commanded rooms full of killers. "Daryl." "Yes, sir." Today was Sophia's last day breathing freely. She just doesn't know it yet. As Daryl hurried away into the rain, Angelo remained in the alley, letting the water wash over him. The suburban husband was dead. The ghost of Cell Block 8 had work to do. Chapter 2. Ghosts and Foundations. Angelo's house sat in the pristine suburb of Willowbrook like a picture from a home magazine. White picket fence, manicured lawn, two-car garage. The American dream made manifest. As he pulled into the driveway at 11:47 p.m., he could see the glow of the television through the living room window. Sophia would be watching her late-night crime shows, probably texting Clay Noble between commercial breaks. Clay Noble. The name tasted like poison in Angelo's mind. Sophia's tennis instructor turned lover. A pretty boy with soft hands and softer morals who had no idea what he'd stumbled into when he decided to seduce Angelo Mills' wife. Angelo sat in his car for a moment, studying the house he'd bought with blood money from contracts the government would never acknowledge. Inside those walls, his daughter Jennifer was sleeping, unaware that her own mother had put a price on her head. The rage that filled Angelo was cold and methodical. the kind that had once reduced hardened war criminals to sobbing confessions. He entered through the front door, his key turning silently in the lock. A skill from the old days. "Angelo," Sophia's voice called from the living room. "You're late." "How was work? How was work?" Angelo almost laughed. If she only knew. He found her curled up on the couch in silk pajamas, looking beautiful and innocent. Her blonde hair fell in waves over her shoulders, and her green eyes held just the right amount of concern. She was good at this, the performance of being a loving wife. She'd been practicing for months. "Rough day," he said, settling into his recliner. "Johnson's still having problems with those gang threats. Had to work late on security assessments." It wasn't entirely a lie. His private security firm did handle corporate clients, though most of Angelo's real work came from a very different clientele. People who needed problems to disappear permanently. "Poor baby," Sophia said, muting the TV. "You work too hard. Maybe you should take some time off. We could visit my sister in Florida. Take Jennifer to Disney World." Angelo studied his wife's face, looking for tells. The slight tension around her eyes. The way she touched her wedding ring when she lied. "All there." "Maybe," he said. "Sophia, is everything okay between us?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and he saw something like guilt flicker across her features. "Of course, honey. Why would you ask that?" "Just wondering. You seem distant lately, like you're somewhere else." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "I'm right here, Angelo. Always have been, always will be." The lie hung in the air between them like smoke. Angelo nodded and smiled, playing his part in their mutual deception. "I'm going to check on Jennifer," he said, standing. His daughter's room was exactly as it should be. A 16-year-old's organized chaos of school books, band posters, and the detritus of teenage life. Jennifer lay sleeping peacefully, her dark hair spread across the pillow. She had Angelo's eyes and chin, but Sophia's delicate features. Looking at her now, Angelo felt something crack inside his chest. Jennifer was innocent in all this. Whatever happened next, she couldn't be collateral damage. He returned to the living room to find Sophia texting on her phone. She quickly put it away when she saw him. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just coordinating with the school fundraiser committee. You know how demanding Melinda Mason can be." Another lie, smooth as silk. Angelo nodded and headed upstairs. "I'm going to shower and get some sleep. Long day tomorrow." In their bedroom, he opened his laptop and accessed files that officially didn't exist. Background checks on Clay Noble revealed exactly what Angelo expected. A trust fund playboy who'd burned through his inheritance and now survived by giving tennis lessons to bored housewives. He'd been married twice, both wives filing for divorce, citing infidelity. More interesting was Clay's connection to Eric Peters, a low-level criminal with ties to money laundering operations. Clay wasn't just cheating with Sophia. He was planning to rob Angelo blind and disappear with his wife. Angelo's phone buzzed. A text from Daryl. "Meeting set. Tomorrow, 11 p.m. She's bringing someone." "Perfect." Angelo smiled as he began to make preparations. The ghost of Cell Block 8 had been dormant for 7 years, but he hadn't forgotten how to hunt. Chapter 3. The Lover's Gambit. Clay Noble's apartment overlooked the harbor from the expensive side of downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture, and a wine collection that cost more than most people's cars. All of it purchased with money from wealthy women who thought they were buying his exclusive attention. Angelo watched from across the street through military-grade binoculars as Clay paced his living room, phone pressed to his ear. Even from this distance, Angelo could read his agitation in the tension of his shoulders, the sharp gestures he made with his free hand. At 2:17 p.m., Sophia's BMW pulled into the building's parking garage. Angelo had been watching for 3 hours, learning Clay's patterns, identifying exit routes, cataloging security measures. Old habits. Sophia emerged from the elevator 20 minutes later, her hair disheveled, her lipstick gone. She was glowing with post-coital satisfaction and the thrill of deception. Angelo felt nothing watching her leave except a cold, clinical detachment. The woman he'd loved was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. His phone rang. Daryl's number. She wants to move the meeting up, Daryl said without preamble. Tonight, 9 o'clock. Same place. What? Didn't say. But she's spooked about something. Kept asking if I was sure you were dead. Wanted details about the scene. Angelo considered this. Sophia was getting nervous, which meant she was making mistakes. Good. Did she mention Jennifer? Yeah, actually. Said the job on the kid needed to happen tomorrow, before the funeral arrangements got too complicated. The casual way Daryl delivered those words, the job on the kid, sent ice through Angelo's veins. His own wife, planning their daughter's murder with the same detachment she might use to schedule a hair appointment. Any change in payment? She's bringing the full amount tonight. 50 grand for you, another 50 for the girl. Cash. After ending the call, Angelo drove to his office, a nondescript building that housed Mill Security Services. His legitimate business employed 12 people and generated enough income to maintain his suburban facade. But in the basement, behind a door-marked storage, lay the tools of his true trade. The room looked like something from a spy movie: weapons racks, surveillance equipment, false identification documents. Angelo selected items carefully: night vision goggles, a suppress .45, zip ties, and a small leather case containing syringes filled with various pharmaceutical solutions. At 6 p.m., he called Jennifer's school. This is Angelo Mills, Jennifer's father. I need to pick her up early today. Family emergency. Of course, Mr. Mills. Should we have her meet you in the office? Actually, I'm running late. Could you ask her to wait at the coffee shop across from school? I'll text her the details. 20 minutes later, Angelo watched his daughter through the coffee shop window. Jennifer was beautiful at 16, but she carried herself with a confidence that reminded him of Sophia before the masks had taken over. She was texting friends, laughing at something on her phone, completely unaware that her world was about to implode. Angelo entered the shop and approached her table. Dad, what's wrong? The school said there was an emergency. There is, sweetheart, but not the kind they think. Angelo sat across from her, noting how her expression shifted from confusion to concern. Jennifer, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your life depends on it. He told her everything. Not the details of his past. She wasn't ready for that. But the immediate threat. Her mother's betrayal. The contract on both their lives. The man who'd been hired to kill them. Jennifer's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Disbelief, horror, anger, and finally, a hardness that reminded Angelo too much of himself. Mom really wants us dead? Yes. For money. Money and freedom. She's planning to disappear with Clay Noble. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. When she looked up, her eyes held a fury that made Angelo proud and heartbroken simultaneously. What do? We survive, and then we make them pay. At 8:45 p.m., Angelo positioned Jennifer in a secure location 3 blocks from Pier 47, a safe house he'd maintained for years. She had a secure phone, enough cash to disappear if things went wrong, and instructions to contact a man named Wesley Galvin if Angelo didn't return by morning. Dad, she said as he prepared to leave, when this is over, what happens to us? Angelo looked at his daughter, brave, strong, and now forced to grow up far too quickly because of Sophia's choices. We start over, he said. Just us. The way it should have been from the beginning. Chapter 4. The Meeting. Pier 47 squatted on the waterfront like a cancer, its abandoned warehouses and rusted infrastructure perfect for the kind of business that thrived in shadows. Angelo arrived at 8:30, giving himself 30 minutes to prepare the battlefield. Warehouse 7 sat at the end of the pier, its broken windows like dead eyes staring out at the harbor. Angelo moved through the building like smoke, placing cameras, setting traps, creating kill zones and escape routes. The ghost was fully awake now, and this was his natural habitat. At 8:58, headlights swept across the warehouse entrance. Sophia's BMW, followed by a silver Mercedes that Angelo recognized as Clay's car. They were early, nervous, making amateur mistakes. Angelo watched from the shadows of the warehouse rafters as Sophia and Clay entered the building. Daryl was already there, standing nervously near a stack of shipping containers. His posture screamed inexperience and fear. Sophia looked beautiful even here, in this place of rust and decay. She wore dark jeans and a black leather jacket, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She carried herself with confidence, but Angelo could read the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes constantly moved, searching for threats. Clay Noble was exactly what Angelo had expected. Handsome in a soft, pampered way, wearing expensive clothes that looked absurd in the warehouse setting. He stayed close to Sophia, one hand resting on her lower back in a gesture of possession that made Angelo's jaw clench. "Is it done?" Sophia asked without preamble. Daryl nodded, pulling out his phone. "Yeah, but there were complications. Your husband, he wasn't what I expected." "What do you mean?" Clay stepped forward, his voice sharp with anxiety. "I mean, he fought back. Hard. Had to get creative with the scene to make it look like a robbery." Angelo smiled grimly. Daryl was better at this than he'd given him credit for. Sophia relaxed slightly. "And the body?" "Harbor. Weighted down. Won't surface." Daryl paused. "About the kid, though. What about her?" Sophia's voice went cold. 50 grand for a 16-year-old girl? That's serious heat if this goes sideways." Clay laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "She's not just any 16-year-old. Jennifer knows things. About Angelo's work, his connections. She's smart enough to put pieces together that could bury us all." Angelo felt something dark and primal rise in his chest. They weren't just planning to kill Jennifer for money. They were eliminating her as a witness to whatever they thought they knew about his activities. "The girl dies tomorrow," Sophia said flatly. "I don't care how you do it. Just make it look accidental. Car crash, drowning, whatever. Just get it done." "You're talking about your own daughter," Daryl said, and for a moment Angelo felt a flicker of respect for the hired killer. Sophia's laugh was ice cold. "She's Angelo's daughter. I never wanted kids. That was all him. Playing house, pretending we were a normal family. Well, now I'm free to live my own life." Clay moved closer to her, possessive and proud. "We both are. Once this is finished, we disappear. New identities, new life. Maybe somewhere tropical." Angelo had heard enough. He dropped from the rafters silently, landing in the shadows behind the shipping containers. The ghost moved through the darkness like death itself, positioning himself perfectly. 50,000, Sophia said, pulling a duffel bag from her BMW. "Half now, half when it's done." "About that," Angelo said, stepping into the light. 3 heads snapped toward him in perfect unison. Sophia's face went white. Clay stumbled backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Daryl reached for his gun and found Angelo's .45 already pointed at his chest. "Hello, darling," Angelo said to his wife. "We need to talk." Chapter 5. Truth and Consequences. The warehouse fell into absolute silence except for the sound of water lapping against the pier outside. Angelo kept his weapon trained on Daryl while his eyes never left Sophia's face. She'd gone through shock and was now calculating, her mind racing through possibilities and escape routes. "Angelo," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Thank God you're alive. This man kidnapped me, forced me to—" "Stop." Angelo's voice cut through her lies like a blade. "I heard everything, Sophia. Your own words. Jennifer is my daughter, not yours. You never wanted kids. Ring any bells?" Clay found his voice. "Look, man, this isn't what it looks like." Sophia was just. Angelo shifted his aim to Clay's chest. "I wasn't talking to you." The tennis instructor shut up immediately. Daryl raised his hands slowly. "Ghost, I want no part of this. This is between you and them." "Smart man." Angelo reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope, tossing it to Daryl. "Consider this a consulting fee. You helped me learn something important about my wife." Daryl caught the envelope, looked inside, and his eyes widened. "This is 25,000 for services rendered. Now disappear." Daryl didn't need to be told twice. He pocketed the money and headed for the exit, pausing only to look back at Sophia and Clay with something that might have been pity. "You two have no idea what you've done," he said, then vanished into the night. Now, it was just the three of them in the warehouse. Husband, wife, and lover. Angelo lowered his weapon, but didn't holster it. 15 years, Sophia. 15 years, I gave you everything. A home, security, a child. I walked away from a life that paid 10 times what I make now because you said you wanted normal. You wanted safe. And boring, Sophia shot back, her mask finally slipping completely. God, Angelo, do you have any idea what it's like being married to a ghost? You think I don't know what you really do? Those business trips that last for weeks? The way you wake up screaming from nightmares you won't talk about? I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Her voice echoed off the warehouse walls. From having to be a real person instead of some legend from your past. The ghost of Cell Block 8. Even the name sounds like something from a comic book. Clay stepped closer to Sophia, emboldened by her anger. She deserves better than living with a has-been killer who can't let go of his glory days. Angelo studied Clay Noble with the same detachment he'd once used to evaluate targets. Soft, weak, but with enough arrogance to think he could take another man's life and wife without consequences. Glory days? Angelo asked quietly. Is that what you think they were? Without warning, he moved. In one fluid motion, Angelo crossed the distance between them and put Clay in a chokehold, the gun pressed against his temple. Cell Block 8 wasn't a prison, Angelo whispered in Clay's ear. It was a laboratory. They kept the worst of the worst there, war criminals, terrorists, dictators. My job was to break them without leaving marks. To find the exact psychological pressure points that would make a man tell me anything I wanted to know. Clay struggled weakly, but Angelo's grip was iron. 15 years I've been retired from that work. 15 years I've tried to be the suburban husband she wanted. But you know what, Clay? Some skills never fade. Sophia watched with growing horror as Angelo's grip tightened around Clay's throat. Tell me, pretty boy, what's your greatest fear? Everyone has one. The thing that wakes them up in cold sweats. The thought that makes them check the locks twice before bed. Please, Clay gasped. I'm sorry. We'll leave. We'll disappear. You'll never see us again. Angelo laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Oh, but you already tried to disappear. After you killed me and my daughter. Remember? He released Clay, who collapsed to his knees, gasping. The thing is, Angelo continued, I might have let you walk away if you just wanted to steal my wife. Marriage is a contract, and contracts can be broken. But you involved Jennifer. You put a price on my daughter's head. Angelo turned to Sophia. And you, my beloved wife, you didn't just want out of our marriage. You wanted me and Jennifer dead. Not divorced, dead. That suggests a level of planning that goes beyond simple infidelity. Sophia lifted her chin defiantly. You want to know the truth? Fine. Clay and I have been planning this for 8 months. We know about your offshore accounts, your safe deposit boxes, your real estate holdings. We know you're worth at least $3 million, probably more. So this was about money. It was about freedom. Sophia exploded. Freedom from pretending to love a man who's more ghost than human. Freedom from raising a daughter who looks at me like I'm some kind of failure because I'm not as perfect as her precious daddy. Angelo absorbed this, filing away each word like evidence in a case file. Jennifer looks at you like that because you've been lying to her for 8 months while planning to murder her. She would have figured it out eventually, Clay said, struggling to his feet. Smart kids always do. She would have put together the pieces about what happened to you, and then we'd have spent the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Angelo nodded slowly. You're right about one thing. Jennifer is smart. Smart enough to know that her mother stopped loving her long before she started planning to kill her. Chapter 6, The Hunter's Game. Angelo walked to the warehouse windows and looked out at the harbor. The lights of the city reflected on the dark water like fallen stars, beautiful and cold. Behind him, Sophia and Clay whispered to each other, probably planning their next move. They still thought this was a negotiation. I have a proposition, Angelo said without turning around. What kind of proposition? Sophia asked cautiously. A game. The kind I used to play in the old days when I needed information from people who thought they were smarter than me. He turned back to face them. Clay had his arm around Sophia protectively, as if he could shield her from what was coming. Here's how it works. I'm going to give you both a head start. 12 hours. You can run anywhere you want, use any resources you have. But you can't leave the city, and you can't contact anyone for help. After 12 hours, I start hunting. You're insane, Clay said. Maybe, but I'm also giving you something you didn't give me, a chance to survive. More than you were planning to give Jennifer. Sophia stepped forward. What do you get out of this? What's the point? Angelo smiled, and for the first time since entering the warehouse, he looked genuinely pleased. Simple. If you can evade me for 7 days, I'll transfer $2 million to an account of your choosing and disappear from your lives forever. You'll never see me again, and neither will Jennifer. And if you catch us, then you pay for what you plan to do to my daughter. Clay looked at Sophia, hope flickering in his eyes. $2 million, sophomore. We could disappear anywhere in the world with that kind of money. But Sophia was studying Angelo's face, looking for the trap she knew had to be there. What aren't you telling us? She asked. I'm telling you everything you need to know. 12-hour head start, 7 days to stay free, $2 million if you succeed. And Jennifer is safe, has been since this afternoon. Angelo's expression hardened. Unlike the mother who want her dead, I actually protect my child. Sophia flinched as if he'd slapped her. Clock starts now, Angelo said, checking his watch. It's 11:43 p.m. You have until 11:43 tomorrow night to prepare. Then the game begins. Clay grabbed Sophia's hand. We need to go. Now, get whatever cash we have and... Wait. Sophia was still staring at Angelo. Why are you doing this? You could just kill us right here. No witnesses, no complications. Angelo was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. Because I want you to understand what it feels like to be hunted. To know that someone is coming for you. And that running only delays the inevitable. I want you to experience the fear you were planning to inflict on Jennifer. You bastard, Sophia whispered. Yes, Angelo agreed. But I'm your bastard. Made that way by 15 years of loving a woman who was planning to murder me and our child for money. Clay pulled Sophia toward the exit. Come on, we're wasting time. At the warehouse door, Sophia turned back one final time. This won't bring back what we had, Angelo. Even if you win, even if you destroy us, we can't go back to being a family. Angelo nodded. No, we can't. But Jennifer and I can build something new. Something honest. Something without you in it. After they left, Angelo remained in the warehouse for another hour planning. The game he described was real, but like everything else in his world, it wasn't what it appeared to be on the surface. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number from memory. Wesley, it's Angelo. I need a favor. Wesley Galvin's voice was gravelly with sleep. Ghost? Jesus, it's been 5 years? I thought you were completely out of the life. I was. Until tonight. I need surveillance on 2 targets. Sophia Mills and Clay Noble. Full coverage, electronic, physical, financial. Everything. How deep do you want me to go? Angelo looked out at the harbor where his wife and her lover thought they were beginning their escape. Deep enough to bury them. Chapter 7. The Trap Springs. Jennifer sat in the safe house, staring at the secure phone her father had given her. It had been 18 hours since their conversation at the coffee shop, and she hadn't heard from him since. The silence was eating at her alive. The safe house was a modest apartment above a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown, furnished with the basics and stocked with enough supplies to last a week. Angelo had prepared this place years ago, back when Jennifer was too young to understand why her father sometimes needed to disappear for days at a time. Now she understood. Her father was the ghost of Cell Block 8, whatever that meant. And her mother, the woman who'd sung her lullabies and attended every school play, had tried to have them both killed. The secure phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your father wants you to know the game has begun. Stay where you are. W. Jennifer stared at the message. The game? What game? Her regular phone, which she'd turned off per Angelo's instructions, showed 17 missed calls from Sophia. Her mother was trying to reach her, probably wondering why she wasn't home from school. Jennifer almost felt sorry for her until she remembered the conversation in the warehouse that her father had recorded and played for her. She's Angelo's daughter. I never wanted kids. The words still cut like broken glass. At 11:47 p.m., 4 minutes after Angelo's 12-hour deadline, Jennifer's secure phone rang. "Dad, it's Wesley Galvin, kid. Friend of your father's. He asked me to keep you updated on the situation." Jennifer had never heard of Wesley Galvin, but her father had mentioned that name as an emergency contact. "Where is he?" "Tracking your mother and her boyfriend." They lasted exactly 6 hours before making their first major mistake. "What did they do?" Wesley chuckled, a sound that held no humor. "Used a credit card. Rookie error. Your father knew they would. Most people can't survive on cash alone for very long, and desperate people make stupid choices." Through the window, Jennifer could see the lights of the city. Somewhere out there, her father was hunting the woman who'd given birth to her. The thought should have horrified her, but instead she felt something cold and satisfied settle in her chest. "Is he going to kill them?" "That's between your father and his conscience, kid. But I can tell you this. Clay Noble has a gambling debt to some very unpleasant people. The kind who break kneecaps for fun. And your mother just withdrew $50,000 from your father's emergency account." Jennifer processed this information. She's going to pay off Clay's debts. Smart girl. "Yeah, that's our thinking too. They're at the Riverside Casino right now, probably thinking they can hide in the crowd while Clay settles his accounts. Can Dad get to them there?" "Honey, your father could get to them in the middle of a SWAT team convention, but he's not going to move yet. He wants them to think they're safe first. Let them get comfortable, start believing they might actually escape. And then the ghost reminds them why that name used to give hardened killers nightmares." After ending the call, Jennifer found herself thinking about her mother. Not the woman who'd tried to have her killed, but the one who'd taught her to braid her hair and helped with homework. Had that person ever been real, or had it all been an elaborate performance? Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Your mother is asking questions about you. School, friends, usual haunts. Stay dark. Don't contact anyone you know. W." Jennifer turned off both phones and walked to the window. The city stretched out below her like a circuit board, all glowing connections and hidden pathways. Somewhere in that maze, her father was playing a game that would determine whether she had any family left when the sun rose. She thought about Sophia's words in the warehouse. She would have figured it out eventually. Smart kids always do. They were right about one thing. She was smart. Smart enough to piece together things her parents thought she'd never notice. The way Angelo sometimes came home with cuts and bruises he couldn't explain. The phone calls he took in the basement, speaking languages she didn't recognize. The fact that their house had security measures that went far beyond normal suburban paranoia. But she was also smart enough to know that her father had never lied to her about the important things. He'd never pretended to be something he wasn't. He just protected her from knowing what he really was. Sophia, on the other hand, had built their entire relationship on deception. Jennifer made her decision. When this was over, she would ask her father to teach her everything. About his past, his skills, his world. If loving Angelo Mills meant accepting the ghost of Cell Block 8, then that's what she would do. Unlike her mother, Jennifer didn't run from the truth. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The Riverside Casino never truly slept. Even at 3 a.m., the slot machines chimed their electronic lullabies, and dedicated gamblers fed money into the mechanical mouths that would never be full. Angelo watched from the security office on the second floor as Sophia and Clay moved through the poker room below. They thought they were being careful. Clay had changed clothes and was wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Sophia had dyed her hair brown and was dressed in jeans and a sweater that made her look younger, more ordinary. Amateur disguises that might fool a casual observer, but meant nothing to a man who'd once tracked war criminals across 3 continents. "Your boy's down about 30 grand, said Morris Fisher, the casino's head of security. Morris was an old friend who'd worked private military contracts with Angelo in the years before Cell Block 8. He owed Angelo his life twice over, which made him uniquely motivated to cooperate. What about the men he owes money to? Francis Rosales and his crew are here. Been circling the poker room for the last hour like sharks. Your boy's girlfriend keeps feeding him cash, but it's not enough. He's playing scared money against professionals." Angelo nodded. Clay was trapped between the debt he owed and the men who'd kill him if he couldn't pay. Sophia was bleeding money, trying to keep him afloat, not realizing that scared gamblers always lost in the end. "I need 10 minutes alone with them," Angelo said. Morris smiled grimly. "I can arrange that. VIP room 7 is empty. I'll have my boys encourage them to take their game somewhere more private." 20 minutes later, Angelo entered VIP room 7 to find Sophia and Clay seated at a small table, looking exhausted and defeated. Clay's face was pale with sweat, and his hands shook as he counted what remained of their cash. Sophia looked up as Angelo closed the door behind him. "Hello, darling," he said. "How's the game going?" Clay lurched to his feet, knocking over his chair. "You said 12 hours. I gave you 12 hours to prepare. I never said I wouldn't be watching." Angelo sat across from Sophia, noting how she'd aged years in the span of a single day. "You used my emergency credit card. Rookie mistake. We needed cash. You needed to pay Clay's gambling debts. $67,000 to Francis Rosales and his associates. Money Clay borrowed to invest in a surefire business opportunity that turned out to be a scam." Sophia's face went white. "How do you know everything about your boyfriend's finances?" "Because I've been investigating him since the day you first mentioned his name 6 months ago. Clay Noble, 34 years old, trust fund baby who burned through his inheritance by age 28. 2 failed marriages, both wives citing financial irresponsibility and infidelity. Currently living off tennis lessons and the generosity of wealthy women." Angelo pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. On the screen was a detailed financial report showing Clay's debts, assets, and spending patterns. "Did you know he was already planning to leave you? Had a plane ticket to Costa Rica for next week. One way, no return date." Sophia looked at Clay, who couldn't meet her eyes. "Is that true?" Clay's silence was answer enough. Angelo continued. "The plan was simple. Convince you to help him pay off his debts, then disappear with whatever money was left. You were never going to Costa Rica with him, Sophia. You were just another mark." "You're lying," Sophia said, but her voice lacked conviction. Angelo tapped the tablet screen. "Account records don't lie. He's been wiring money to a bank in San Jose for 3 months. Enough to live comfortably for years." The betrayal hit Sophia like a physical blow. She turned to Clay with fury in her eyes. "You bastard. I destroyed my marriage for you. I was going to kill my own daughter. I never asked you to do that." Clay exploded. "That was your idea. You're the one who said Jennifer had to die." Angelo watched them turn on each other with the satisfaction of a chess master seeing his opponent's position collapse. This was what he'd learned in Cell Block 8, that the strongest bonds could be shattered by the right pressure applied at the right moment. "The thing about betrayers," Angelo said quietly, "is that they can never trust anyone because they know how easy it is to betray someone. Clay never loved you, Sophia. He was using you the same way you were using me." Sophia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. "I gave up everything for him." "No," Angelo corrected. "You gave up everything for money. Clay was just the delivery system." The door opened, and Francis Rosales entered with 2 large men who looked like they bench-pressed motorcycles for fun. Francis was a small, well-dressed man with the kind of soft voice that made his threats seem even more dangerous. "Clay Noble," Francis said pleasantly. "You've been avoiding my calls." Clay shrank back in his chair. "Francis, I have your money. All of it. Right here." He gestured to the cash on the table, maybe $15,000. Francis smiled. "That's not enough, Clay. Not nearly enough. See, when a man avoids paying his debts, the interest compounds. Daily. You now owe me $93,000. "I don't have $93,000. Then we have a problem." Angelo stood up. "Francis, good to see you again." Francis looked at Angelo with surprise that quickly turned to recognition and then to something approaching fear. "Angelo Mills, the ghost. I heard you'd retired." "I had, but family business brought me back." Francis nodded slowly, understanding passing between the 2 men. "This your family business?" "My wife and her boyfriend. They're having some relationship issues." Francis glanced at Sophia and Clay, then back at Angelo. After a moment, he smiled. "Well then, I suppose Mr. Noble's debt is between him and his associates now. Francis and his men left without another word, leaving the three of them alone again. You just saved Clay's life, Sophia said to Angelo. No, Angelo replied. I just decided how he's going to die. Chapter 9, Ghost Justice. The abandoned warehouse in the industrial district looked different in daylight. Where shadows had provided concealment the night before, now harsh sunlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating the rust and decay that time had carved into every surface. Angelo had brought Sophia and Clay here not for nostalgia, but because some things required the right setting. Justice, he'd learned long ago, was a performance that needed the proper stage. They sat tied to chairs in the center of the warehouse floor, 20 feet apart, close enough to see each other, but too far to touch. Angelo had spent the morning making preparations while they slept off the chloroform he'd used to transport them here. Old habits from the cell block 8 days. Sometimes you needed people unconscious and cooperative. Jennifer's safe, Angelo said, his voice echoing in the empty space. In case you were wondering, she's with friends who'll make sure she gets to college, gets to have the life you try to steal from her. Sophia tested her bonds and found them secure. She'll never forgive you for this, for what you're going to do to her mother. Her mother tried to have her killed. I think Jennifer's forgiveness is going to be in short supply where you're concerned. Clay had been quiet since waking up, but now he found his voice. Look, Ghost, I know I screwed up, but Sophia was the one who wanted you and the kid dead. I just wanted the money. Angelo studied Clay with clinical detachment. Even now, facing death, the man was trying to save himself by throwing others under the bus. That's true, Angelo said, but you agreed to it. You helped plan it, and you were going to abandon Sophia anyway once you got what you wanted. She was going to leave you. What difference does it make? Angelo pulled out his phone and played a recording. Clay's voice filled the warehouse. She would have figured it out eventually. Smart kids always do. She would have put together the pieces about what happened to you, and then we'd have spent the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. That's you, Clay, explaining why Jennifer had to die. Not for money, for your peace of mind. Clay's face went ashen. You recorded us? I record everything. Occupational hazard. Angelo put the phone away. The question now is what to do with both of you. Sophia lifted her chin defiantly. So do it. Kill us. Get your revenge. But don't pretend this is about justice. This is about your ego. Angelo considered this. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is about ego. But you know what? I can live with that. He walked to a table where he'd laid out several items. A gun, a knife, syringes filled with different colored liquids, and a small device that looked like a remote control. Cell Block 8 taught me that there are many ways to break a person. Physical pain is crude, inefficient. The mind is much more fragile than the body. Angelo picked up one of the syringes. This contains a paralytic agent. It won't kill you, but it will leave you completely helpless while remaining fully conscious. Perfect for someone who wants to watch and listen, but can't move or speak. You picked up another syringe. This one is more interesting. It's a synthetic compound that induces extreme paranoia and hallucinations. The subject becomes convinced that everyone around them is trying to kill them. They see threats everywhere, trust no one, live in constant terror. Sophia's eyes went wide. You're insane. I'm methodical. There's a difference. Angelo set down the syringes and picked up the gun. Of course, there's always the direct approach. Quick, clean, permanent. Clay was hyperventilating. Please, Ghost. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. You made choices, and choices have consequences. Angelo checked his watch. It's almost time. Time for what? Sophia asked. For justice. Or revenge. I'm still not sure there's a difference. The warehouse door opened, and Jennifer walked in, followed by Wesley Galvin and Morris Fisher. Jennifer looked older than her 16 years, her face set in hard lines that reminded Angelo of himself at that age. Jennifer, no, Sophia said. You don't need to see this. Jennifer walked to within 5 feet of her mother and stopped. See what? You're getting what you deserve. I'm still your mother. No. Jennifer's voice was ice cold. Mothers don't try to have their children killed. You're just the woman who gave birth to me. There's a difference. Angelo watched his daughter with pride and heartbreak. She was strong, stronger than he'd ever been at her age. But she was also harder now, and that was his fault as much as Sophia's. What do you want me to do? Angelo asked Jennifer. Jennifer looked at Clay, then at Sophia, then at her father. I want them to understand what it feels like to lose everything. The way they try to make us lose everything. Angelo nodded. Wesley Galvin stepped forward with a briefcase. Clay Noble, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and about 15 other felonies. Turns out the FBI has been investigating you for tax evasion and money laundering. Amazing how much evidence they can find when they know where to look. Clay's face crumpled. You can't do this. You're not cops. Wesley smiled and pulled out a badge. FBI, actually. I've been undercover for 3 years, working cases just like yours. Angelo turned to Sophia. As for you, my dear wife, you're about to discover that all those offshore accounts and safe deposit boxes you knew about, they're gone, emptied. The money transferred to various charities that help victims of domestic violence. Sophia stared at him in shock. That's our money. Jennifer's college fund is safe in an account you can't touch. Everything else, the house, the cars, the investments, all gone. You wanted to start over with nothing? Congratulations. You got your wish. Morris Fisher stepped forward with 2 other men in suits. Mrs. Mills, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As they read Sophia her rights, Angelo turned to Jennifer. Are you okay with this? Jennifer watched her mother being handcuffed. She gets to live. Clay gets to live. That's more mercy than they were going to show us. And after, when the trials are over and they're in prison. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then we start over. Just us. The way it should have been from the beginning. Angelo smiled. The first genuine smile he'd worn in days. That sounds perfect. As Sophia and Clay were led away, Sophia turned back one final time. This won't make you happy, Angelo. Destroying us won't fix what's broken inside you. Angelo considered this. Maybe not, but it'll do for now. After they were gone, Angelo and Jennifer stood alone in the warehouse. The sunlight streaming through the windows seemed brighter now, cleaner. Dad, Jennifer said, will you teach me? About your real work, about who you really are. Angelo looked at his daughter, brave, strong, and ready to accept the truth about her father's world. Are you sure that's what you want? Jennifer nodded. I want to understand. All of it. The good and the bad. Angelo put his arm around his daughter's shoulders, and together they walked toward the warehouse exit and whatever came next. Then we start tomorrow, he said. The ghost of Cell Block 8 has stories to tell. Behind them, the warehouse settled back into silence, keeping its secrets like all abandoned places do. But outside, in the bright afternoon sun, a father and daughter began the long process of building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Some ghosts, Angelo thought, deserved to be laid to rest. Others deserved to live on, protecting the people who matter most. The ghost of Cell Block 8 would never truly die, but Angelo Mills had learned, finally, how to live. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.